It's summertime, baby. And you know what that means. It's time for the Mario Kart World Cup. Oh my goodness gracious. It's going down in about a couple weeks. And so, naturally, people are talking about it. The registration's just closed, and it's time to make a tier list. You already know. Let's get into it. Alrighty, here we are on tiermaker.com. Par for the course, you already know. I've got all the teams down here. I made this template myself. There's going to be a link down below if you want to make your own. There are 18 teams this World Cup. I don't know if that's more or less than usual. Some countries have combined, as per usual. And it's going to be pretty interesting, I think. So I got my tiers, as always. We've got teams that I think can win the whole thing, you know, realistically. Teams that I think are really good, but probably won't win the whole thing. Teams that are solid, you know, they got decent lineups, good players, but they're not really going to challenge the best teams. The teams that are meh, and then the teams that probably aren't winning any matches. Spoiler alert, there aren't any. I actually don't think there's going to be any teams that go, you know, that are guaranteed to not win a single match. It could happen, but I don't foresee that happening. So I'm going to go in order, I guess alphabetical order. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter. Some of the flags are kind of weird because I put in flag-shaped pictures and it wants square-shaped pictures, so I'll just explain what each of them are. But anyway, let's start. So this is Team Asia. I also have the lineups pulled up right here. This is the thread in the Mario Kart World Cup server, so I can see. Here's Team Asia. I mean, they have some decent runners. Sinclair, Fire, Josh, some of the dogs in there as well. If they practice, I don't know how much they practice, but this team is not that bad. They're not like complete as a team, but they have good players, and for that, I'm gonna put them at solid. I think they're kind of gonna be like a middle of the pack team. I don't think they're gonna place too well, but they're gonna, you know, they're gonna take some dubs here and there. Moving on to Australia. So Australia can definitely put together a really solid, like, complete lineup, which is really important. It's good to have like a solid, you know, foundation of 4 runners and a good bagger that you can rely on to play the important matches, and I think they definitely have that here. If you look at like Barry, Nuclear, Brandon, Verily is what I would say is probably their starting running lineup is going to be. That's a very solid, you know, complete team, like I said. So I think they're going to do pretty well. So I'm putting Australia in really good, but won't win it all. I know they got 4th, I think, in the last World Cup, which was 2 years ago, but I think they haven't really gotten into that top echelon yet, but they're not too far off. Alright, moving on to Benelux, which is Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg. Don't really need to do too much explaining here, but I do think that this is one team that is in contention to win the whole thing. This team has some of the best players in the entire game, without a doubt. Leops and Jeff are going to be carrying the torch for this team, and they have a lot of really solid players to fill in their roster as well. I mean, Olafray, Christian, Dane, Leo, May, Thomas are all players that are definitely really solid, can hold their own. They've got Joris bagging. This team is really good. This is definitely one of the teams that I could very realistically see just winning the whole thing, straight up. Moving on to Team Canada. I personally am going to put Team Canada in this tier. Team Canada has some solid players. My starting lineup would be something like Artie, Hiruko, Thunda, Zesty, probably, which is pretty solid. That's 4 very solid players who I think could work really well together, but I just don't see this team being good enough to really break the top level. They could definitely get like top 8, maybe make an upset here or there, but yeah, that's pretty much where they stand. Alright, next is Team England. You guys have probably seen England in the past. They've made finals before, which I think is enough justification to put them in the can win it all tier. I don't know if it's necessarily going to happen, but they're definitely really good. England's probably going to have something like Xander, Zach, Luke, and then maybe Chi, but they could definitely also use British, which is Ryan. Jazz bagging is going to be really helpful. They also have Arvin, who I guess is going to be their backup bagger. Fred is quite good too. He could play for sure. They really have a good amount of depth to pull from, so I think they're going to make it far. And like I said, they've made finals before. I think comparatively to the rest of the field, they're maybe a tiny bit weaker than they were that World Cup, but I think they're still going to do really well, and there's definitely a chance that they win. Next is France. France has kind of always been around this tier where they don't really have enough like top level talent to be that good, so I'm pretty sure that they're going to end up somewhere around Team Asia in the solid tier. So France is pretty much a combination of like Hex and Gun. Starting lineup probably going to be something like Zone, I don't know, Knight, Hakim, Xenon. But yeah, this team's just going to be alright, I think. I think they'll do average. They have some good players, but they're not, I don't think they're at the level of, you know, Canada and Australia. Alright, Germany. So Germany's weird. They've got definitely some really good players, but I think they definitely fit here looking at the teams that we have up already. Really good, but won't win it all. Germany's got notably Kevin, Crash, Lucid, Nico, Paul. I mean, they can definitely make a couple really solid lineups out of just those players alone, and I think that they could also go really far, but probably not going to win the whole thing either. If you've been following the game, you probably know who most of these players are, and I don't think that's going to be too controversial of a take. Alright, Team India. This might be a little bit of a controversial take. I don't know what people feel about this team, but I'm going to put them all the way up in the can win it all tier. I think they can win it all if and only if they play with their main lineup in all of the important matches. So the thing about India is their starting lineup is really, really good, but I think once you move away from the starting lineup, they're going to struggle. So as long as they can use the lineup of Emil, Jake, Ornan, Pix, and then probably Under or Rahul bagging, doesn't really matter the bag as much, but as long as they use that core lineup of those 4 people, I think they can pretty much beat any team. I don't know if they're the best team per se, but they're definitely good enough to beat any of the top teams if they use that lineup. That's just such a strong group of 4 players with, you know, kind of varying play styles. They're smart, and I think they have a lot of chemistry. Alright, next is Team Ireland. I'm going to drop Team Ireland into the solid tier once again. Ireland has a few players who are pretty scary, but I don't know how active they're all going to be. I think they're going to be alright, but they don't really have the individual talent to take them very far, I don't think. Respectfully. Team Italy is going to be the first team in the meh category, unfortunately. I feel like outside of Sal, they don't really have any top-level threats. I mean, I have been away from the game for a while, so maybe some of these players have gotten a lot better without me knowing, but it just kind of feels like he's going to be a one-man team, and I don't see this World Cup going too well for them. Alright, Japan is next. Like I said with England, Japan is a team that has made finals before. I think it would be foolish to not consider them a contender to win the whole thing. Japan's starting lineup is going to be probably really similar to what they'll have in Heaven in GSC, so something like Asmact, Jan, Prin, or Hiduke, Yoshi KZ. I mean, they really have some good depth, some good chemistry too. Asmact is obviously such a good player individually. They have roast bagging, which is a huge plus, and they've been there before. They've been all the way to finals. This is definitely a scary team, and they could definitely give some teams trouble. Next up is Team Latin America. I'm going to put them in the really good, won't win it all tier. I think they are very comparable to these other teams if you look at who they have on their roster. I think LTA's starting lineup could be pretty stacked, you know, if they use... I mean, really, these players at the top, Dose, Zenoki, Fusion, KA, Victor, I could see being a really strong group of players. They could definitely do well, make it far, but I don't see them winning the whole thing either. Just individually, there's not quite as much talent as there is on some of those other teams that I put in the top echelon. But I do think this will be a better Latin America team than we've seen in the past. Alright, next up is Team Maghreb, which is a region in North Africa comprised of some countries that I just found out about. Respectfully, I did not know that this was a thing, and unfortunately, I'm going to say that they are probably the worst team in the World Cup. I think that they still could win matches, so I'm not going to put them down in this tier, but they are really lacking a lot. Their roster doesn't really have, you know, standout players who I think are going to carry, and it's going to be tough for them to get like a really solid, complete lineup, and this team's definitely going to struggle. Someone's got to be last. Next up is Team Norway. So Norway is kind of a wild card right now. They have some really, really good players. Anybody who knows the game at all knows that there are some of the best players in the world in Norway. However, it is questionable whether or not they will play the entire World Cup. And aside from Fox and Barney, I don't think they have as much of a well-rounded roster as a lot of these other teams, so I'm going to put them in this tier for now. Obviously, there's Fox and Barney, 2 of the best players on the planet. Kion is somebody who I know that they've wanted to play with, at least Fox has been saying that. And then after that, it seems like there's a drop-off to complete their lineup. If it was Team Nordic, like if you combined Norway, Sweden, Finland, they could definitely put up a really, really good roster, but it seems like they're going to kind of struggle against some of the other top teams because of that. I don't know if Fox and Barney are going to be able to do enough to really take it all the way, if they do play, that is. And if they don't play, this team is kind of screwed. Scotland's probably going to be solid as well. I think they have some strong players, but not like enough top caliber talent to really take it far. So this is the Team Scotland lineup. They also added Aaron and Ryan onto their team. I don't think that's going to change too much, but they have, you know, they could make lineups. They have some solid players here. Sammy's obviously pretty good. Luna, Callum, Rosen's an up-and-coming player, if you know, and they have some people who can bag, so this team's gonna do okay. You know, they have a decent core of players that could hold their own, but I don't see them doing super well. Next is Spain. I had them in the bottom tier, and then they just picked up Russo X, although unfortunately I don't think that's actually going to be enough to move them out of the bottom tier, so I'm going to put them back down. I mean, this lineup really has a lot of room for improvement. I think there's a couple decent players, but I really don't see this team doing too well. Russo is obviously really good. I don't know if he's in his top form right now, but he's going to be a big help for them to maybe win some matches. Again, I still think that they can beat some other teams in here, but they're definitely one of the weakest teams in the pool right now. Alright, moving on to the good old US of A. This is US North, this is US South. I just, cut the flag in half. I'm going to keep it a buck. I'm going to put both of the USA teams in the top tier. I think it'd be pretty foolish to not do that. Team US North has been in the finals before. I know they had different lineups, but obviously really, really good players across the board. And a lot of people who have been in finals before already, they 100% could win it all. If we look at the US North lineup, it's a lot of the Superbia players with a few additions from other teams like Lightspeed, TK's in there, Swig. They definitely have a lot of depth. I think they'll have no problem with the early rounds at all. I feel like if they get a good bracket with teams that they're comfortable against, that their playstyle works against, I feel like they're going to do really well. But I just have a strange feeling that there are some teams that are going to give them trouble. I have a feeling that maybe Team Benelux might give this team trouble. I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like they're going to have some roadblocks that they're going to try to avoid in the bracket. But I do think if they get some good draws, they could definitely go all the way. Team US South is also in the top tier, which is pretty self-explanatory. We see their roster, they're probably going to have something like Mike and Batcake, maybe Casper, Macy. I mean, they have depth too. Pretty much all these players are capable of, putting up a good performance. Sam, one of the best baggers in the game. I haven't really talked about baggers too much. US South has Sam, US North has Mac, going to be really helpful for both teams. And yeah, I could definitely see this team being good. I think these players have improved a lot relative to the rest of the field since the last World Cup has happened, and I definitely think this could be a sleeper team to win it all. So that wraps up the list. Like I said, you can make your own list if you go down to the description, click the link. If you want to watch the Mario Kart World Cup, you can go on Mario Kart Central Wii, the Twitch page, or Mario Kart Central, which is where the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe tournament is going to be happening. I don't know anything about that game, so I didn't make a tier list on that. Obviously, good luck to everybody playing. I would love to see some of these teams prove me wrong, but this is just my opinion. If I had to choose one team that I thought was going to win it all, if I had to bet one, back against the wall, gun to my head, I think if I can only pick one team, I feel like Benelux has the best shot at winning right now. I don't know exactly why, but if I had to pick one, I would just say them. And it would be cool to give somebody else a turn. I know that I'm USA, and I will root for them, but I do think that if I had to pick one team, I think Benelux is going to win. Call me crazy. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys all in another video.